Hi, I'm Talia.
And I'm Helen. Welcome to another episode of Dose of Pharma.
Today we are joined by Naomi, who is a senior respiratory pharmacist at Alfred Hospital and a DJ with experience in performing at Rod Laver Arena, F1 Grand Prix, Melbourne Cup, St Kilda Festival, and so much more. Today we'll be discussing how to navigate from passion to career. So to begin with, Naomi, would you be able to tell us a bit more about yourself?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Where do I begin? That's a pretty big introduction. Yes, that's correct. I have worked as the senior pharmacist, so I'm now I'm back. So that was during the pandemic. I was a full-time senior pharmacist, and now I am back to my routine of being a part-time clinical pharmacist and a part-time DJ on the side as well, which is not your usual combination. And I would say it has simultaneously grown over the same amount of time. So I would say about 10 years for both. My background is that I was an absolute theatre nerd in high school, and I loved being part of different plays, musicals. I learned the piano growing up, and my parents said to me, they were like, where does this come from? They're quite academic parents. My mum's an optometrist, dad's an accountant, and they're just like, what, where? Like, how does our kid just love music and theatre? And their attitude was, we are more than happy to support anything that you love, just as long as you understand the importance of education. And that has stuck with me, not just throughout high school, but uni and even until today. And so I was studying math, studying chemistry, really forcing myself almost. And it was just so I could say to my parents, okay, I've done an hour of study of chemistry. Can I, go off and learn my play? And it was almost like I had to sort of prove to them, this is actually what I want to do. And I was good at math. I was good at chemistry. But what I really loved doing was being on stage. Now, I really didn't know what I wanted to do in terms of a profession. I knew that I loved health science. I loved speaking to people. And from that, I was like, what should I do? What's a really good profession that speaks to people on a regular basis, that has a good understanding of health science? My mum suggested pharmacy as a career. She said there's lots of different opportunities, working in a community pharmacy, working in a hospital. The world is your oyster in terms of that type of career. And you're kind of like a jack of all trades, a little bit, about everything. And then if you want to go and specialize, and there is a particular area of interest, you can go and do that. So I entered my pharmacy degree at Monash University. And then when I was going through the degree, I realized that some aspects of my high school, in terms of my passion for music and theatre, started to deteriorate and diminish slowly over the years. And I felt like there was a part of that life, that zest for life, that wasn't quite there. And uni for me was quite stressful at times, to be honest. I was very overwhelmed with the fact that I had a cohort that were extremely intelligent, and they were much more successful in terms of hitting the grades than what I was. And I thought that maybe I wasn't cut out for doing pharmacy because I just wasn't good enough. And as the years went on, I worked in a pharmacy and I started to see what pharmacists did for work. And I was like, no, actually, I need to actually just stick through it and just become, like a pharmacist. I need to get through it. Whatever it takes, I need to do it because I actually love seeing what pharmacists do. And then I, in the background, was always trying to figure out how to sort of integrate that passion for music and theatre. And so it was really throughout my uni degree that I was just searching and searching and searching. And then I did an overseas pharmacy placement in the UK. And that was when I realised how amazing and incredible the world was, and that pharmacy is just one aspect of your life. And I love to go out and enjoy myself and socialise. And I started hearing all this different type of music in different areas when I was going out, and it wasn't music that I had experienced in Australia. So when I returned back from my pharmacy placement, I started collating all this music from overseas, and my friends were like, "You are really loving this." And it happened organically. I think my zest for life started to it was just this spring, in my step. It ignited out of nowhere. And they said to me, "You should learn how to mix." And I was like, "I have no idea what you mean. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever." I didn't know any DJs, not one. And so the thought of creating a mix was next to impossible. I had no idea. And obviously, me being the nerd that I am, I had to Google how to become a DJ. And there was a course online. It was actually in person, sorry, but it was a course that you would enroll online. And the next part was when I was doing my internship as a pharmacist, and I was in a hospital. And what had happened at this point was that now we started to integrate the two lives. I was learning how to become a DJ, and I was going to night school, and I was doing my pharmacy internship. And for me, it was perfect. It was that release, that creative outlet, that when I got home from work and I had to study, if ever I wanted a break, my breaks were dedicated to doing something that I loved. And I never really thought about it for anything more than the fact that it was just a passion for me, and it was just fun. And I didn't think about this end goal of, wanting to become a DJ. I was purely just learning a new skill, and I was having this musical creative outlet that at the time it was just performing in front of my friends and my family, and that was it. And I felt fulfilled. It was a really great feeling. So that's a little bit of my background. It obviously did progress into a DJ career, but that's where it all started.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Thank you for sharing. So with so many things going on at the same time, like you had to do your internship back then and then go study at night, study how to mix, how to do DJ. And even now you're working part-time as a pharmacist, but as a DJ at the same time. So we're just wondering, how would a usual week look like for you?
That's a good question. 3 days a week, I am a pharmacist, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then every third or fourth weekend shift at the hospital. So that has been my life maybe for the last 5 or 6 years. Before that, I was full-time as a pharmacist, juggling DJing as well. It started off just DJing for friends and family, as I said. And over the years, it started to grow. And that was just organically. I wasn't looking for work. I wasn't looking to get gigs. I was just playing around. I just saved up enough money to buy DJ equipment. Then I would just practice And then through word of mouth, people started booking me. And I, again, at this point, wasn't thinking about it as a career. I was just having fun. So I had a few public gigs. I played New Year's Eve in the Docklands, and I brought my whole family along. I played at a bar one time, Golden Monkey. I think that's on Flinders Lane, somewhere in the CBD. And my parents came along to that event, and they just loved seeing me, DJ. And then as the years progress, I started getting inquiries come through for weddings, and I entered a DJ competition called Your Shot, and I was a wild card entry participant because I had been DJing for a few years, but I hadn't been pursuing it at all. And it was then that there were scouts that saw me, and they were from agencies. Now, these agencies book entertainment for corporate events. Now, I didn't even think that there was such a thing as a corporate DJ. I thought that DJs were only associated with nightclubs. And I knew that for me, it was going to be really hard to DJ from a practical sense of the fact that I have a daytime job. How am I going to pursue this passion that is, notoriously an evening job? And so when these agencies approached me and said, are you interested in these corporate events? A lot of them were during the day and not necessarily an evening event. And so over time, I started getting experience, and it was just at shopping centres, sort of events that were just like the opening or a VIP experience, and they needed a corporate DJ for that event. And it was playing background music or just creating a little bit of an ambience and a vibe, not necessarily, again, what I thought was the stock standard definition of a DJ, playing a party set at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m., which I just knew that wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to live. So I was getting these gigs over the years that were fitting in with my schedule of being daytime pharmacist. And then as the inquiry started to increase, I needed to switch that mindset of, okay, how can I do both? How can I work as a pharmacist and still pursue this passion that I have on the side? Because it started to get to the point where I had to make a choice. I had to make the choice of, do I take this event, and what do I have to do to, swap a weekend shift? Because most of the events were on the weekends. And then I had to also think about maintaining a healthy lifestyle. You can't work 7 days a week. You can't do an evening gig that's 7 p.m. till midnight and then have a shift at the hospital the next day. It was, when I was younger, in my early 20s, that's probably something that I could do. I think a lot of people do go out on the weekends and then they do go to work the next day. And they, but long term, in terms of sleep deprivation and making sure that you're eating well and you're exercising, still having social life, making sure that you're making time for friends and family and having some downtime as well, I found that I was starting to burn out quite quickly because that was just way too much. So I did change my hours of becoming a part-time pharmacist, and it made the world of difference. It was a very rational process. Wasn't just a flick of a switch. I'm just going to, change my hours and we'll see how it goes. For me, I had to say, okay, if I'm going to take this seriously and I'm going to invest my time into actually pursuing this as a career, I'm going to need to justify that financially, because if you're working as a pharmacist 3 days a week, that's obviously not the same amount of income as a full-time pharmacist, right? So I set very small goals for myself. It was never about that end goal of wanting to become a full-time DJ for me. That was never an end goal. I always just said to myself, I want to be able to say yes to these opportunities. I don't know what these opportunities are, or where they will, where I'll end up, but I want the flexibility. And it was really great because work was so supportive. And I approached it in the sense that, I needed to have and maintain, a really good work-life balance. I wanted to make sure that I was, looking after, my well-being and my wellness. And that was really important for me. So I have been able to successfully have both jobs going at the same time. Now, whether I necessarily, whether I'm, only working part-time with both of them, that's not the case at all. I'm definitely working around the clock with my own DJ business, and that's something that I have, it's increased over time. And again, I had to change my goals and reach out to people and create a team, because I knew that at some point I was going to need help. So in the beginning, it was fine. I only had, maybe one event a month. It wasn't, it was fine. And I could prep music and sort of set out my time, prepare myself. I knew what outfit I was going to wear to the event. I could communicate with the client before the event, and everything was fine. Now, fast forward, I started learning to DJ when I was 21. I'm 32 now, so I've been doing it for over 10 years. And so now I have assistants helping me with responding to emails. I've got a team. I've got an AV technician who sets up my DJ equipment and the sound system. When I was first starting out, I had to save my money to buy speakers, to buy a microphone, to buy lighting, a little smoke machine, like everything, that's expenses, right? And you have to think to yourself, if you're going to start, turn your passion into a career, is that actually feasible? And is that something that you actually want to do? Because it's also okay. I would have also been okay with not doing that and still just enjoying mixing it for my friends and family. It was never, as I said, it was never my intention to start a career in DJing. It was always my intent was just to have that music and creative outlet because it brought me joy and happiness.
Yeah, wow. As you said, Naomi, it was never like an intention to explore it kind of as like a full-time or part-time career, the DJing. You talked as well about being in the UK and listening to some of those music samples, which kind of inspired you to, explore that a bit more further when you got back here to Melbourne. So was there a specific moment, it's a difficult question, but was there a specific moment where you felt really motivated and thought, hey, I think I might actually want to explore DJing in a bit more of a professional sense, like DJing gigs and really getting my name out there?
Absolutely. There was that point where I was finishing my pharmacy degree, and there's that sense of relief where, you're finishing that chapter of your life, and it's a very weird moment because you're about to enter into your first full-time work job, but then you're also going to be studying still to graduate and to become a registered pharmacist. Sorry, not graduate. And when I graduated from pharmacy, I had probably about 6 weeks where I was in no man's land and I had nothing to do. And it was, for me, I'm always someone that loves to learn new skills. And so I finally had that downtime. And so during that process of that year, that final year of internship, when I went to the UK and I brought back music, it was probably that year where I was just collecting all the music that I loved, and I was just doing that on the side. So I was listening to music when I was studying, and I knew that that was bringing me joy. and I wanted to take it to the next level. And it was only when I had the spare time, because I knew that I needed to still focus on my main goal, which was graduating from pharmacy. And so when I did, and I had the 6 weeks break, that's when I enrolled into the DJ course, which was about a 3 or 4 month course, and it was 2 or 3 nights on Elizabeth Street in the city. And all I did was just enroll. I had no idea what I was getting into. It was just more of the fact that, you know what, it would be fun. It would be really fun to just enroll in this course. I'm probably not going to learn, let's be honest. I'm probably not going to know how to properly DJ. I had zero expectations. All I knew was that there were 2 songs that I loved, and I wanted to blend them together because I wanted to just continue the music going. And, you know, obviously with technology these days, it is quite easy to do that. But back then, you know, sort of over 10 years ago, that I didn't know, as I said, I didn't know anybody who was a DJ, and I wasn't aspiring to become, you know, a festival DJ and tour the world. I just simply wanted to be able to mix 2 songs that were my favorite songs together. And so it was the emotion that was evoked through listening that made me want to pursue it more. What it was, how deeply I was going to pursue it, I had no idea. And by the end of that DJ course, there was competition. And when that competition came around, it was at Laundry Bar, and I knew that the prize was a residency at a bar. And so I then thought to myself, this would be amazing. This would be great to be able to play in a public place. But again, you know, I just wanted to win the competition. And so I brought all my friends and family down. And meanwhile, I was doing my pharmacy, my internship at the hospital at the time. So I was really already starting to like try and balance the two of starting this new skill. And I didn't tell anyone either at work, because I think when you first start out learning a new skill and pursuing a passion, you almost feel this slight embarrassment because you don't really know what you're doing. When you're an expert in something, you tell people what you're doing, and you're like, yeah, I've been playing the piano for 10 years. You know, it's pretty normal. But I really kept it a secret for a very long time. And then it was probably a couple of months, to be honest. And then when I told my work colleagues, some of them were like, that's amazing. We want to come and see you play. And so, it was just this constant, one thing led to another. And then I just said yes to these opportunities. And I think I'm very much a yes person, and I love learning new skills. And I don't really, I mean, you do think about the consequences. Like if you don't do well, like if I didn't do well in that competition in front of my friends and family, that would have been pretty embarrassing. But I was lucky. I did win the competition. So that just unlocked another sort of chapter for me. Oh, actually, I'm actually all right at this. I'm pretty good. I didn't know that. I just thought that you practice at home, and then you practice in front of your parents, and they're obviously going to be always encouraging and positive and nice. But then when you're playing to the public and you've got judges that are completely objective, well, as objective as you can be with music, because it is a subjective it is a subjective competition at the end of the day in terms of taste of music. But in terms of mixing and performance, you know, a lot of that is quite objective. And knowing that strangers loved what I was doing gave me confidence to pursue it even more. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, congrats firstly on winning that competition. I'm sure your friends and family would have loved seeing you perform for the first time. Like that would have been such an incredible opportunity to share that with them. I was just curious, you mentioned 2 of your favorite songs that you really wanted to mix. What songs were they?
They would have been, that's a good question. Because I loved Latin house. I still
cool. Right.
So it probably would have been Danza Kuduro and like Rock This Party, Bob Sinclair, like something like that, where it was just high energy. But I ended up doing it was half R&B, half Latin house was my competition set, and I had drums on an iPad. So I was kind of like playing like a live instrument during the DJ set as well, because I wanted to show R&B and reggaeton. Particularly reggaeton was cool, and back then no one really knew what reggaeton was. And so for me, again, it was exciting for me to showcase a genre of music that really wasn't known. And so even just telling people this is the music that I listen to and inviting people into your world was just an exciting concept for me. So they were the two songs.
So doing DJing and working as a pharmacist at one time, when we first know that we're going to have this conversation with you, I was like, wow, such an odd combination. Like, who would expect someone to do both at a time? So how did you navigate through all the expectations and all the challenges that are associated with both DJing and in pharmacy?
It was hard in the beginning. As I said, I was really embarrassed. And it was, maybe embarrassed is probably the wrong word, but I think I was quite shy at the fact that I was, doing something other than pharmacy, and I didn't think that people would understand. And it's not that I was seeking people's validation, but you're obviously trying to protect your own, you become quite vulnerable when you're telling people that you're learning a new skill or you're doing something that's your passion, because people often ask why. That was probably, when I told people, they were like, but you're a pharmacist. Well, why are you doing that? And I didn't really feel like I needed to justify to people why I was doing it. So I did sort of keep it on the down low. And as people got to know me and got to know my personality and the fact that I did come from a musical background, I did come from a theatrical background. My friends, they all knew straight up. They were just like, this is where you need to be. You love performing. Not that I was, not that they said, oh, just, quit pharmacy and become a DJ. That was not what their intention was. It was, you should be doing that in any way, shape or form. And I had toyed with the idea of doing amateur theatre in uni, but because Parkville campus is in the city, most of the opportunities were more like the Clayton campus, where there was the opportunity to get involved in all the extracurricular activities. So I had to actively seek out these, extracurricular activities myself. And so what I did was that I built up a DJ network over time, and it was a peer support network where other people that were learning to DJ were going through the same thing. And I realized there's actually more people out there that are trying to learn the same skill as me. And that gave me the courage to start to really want to do it more and show people more. And so from this shy, embarrassed person that I was, I knew that what I wanted to do was I wanted to show people. I was proud of what I was doing. And, I set that next goal of putting up a mix on SoundCloud. And that was the day that I wanted to show the world that I was doing it. But, it took me months. I'm not joking. It took me months. I was just toing and froing. And I was thinking to myself, what are people going to think? What are people going to think? What if people think, they don't like it, and then they comment and they say that I'm not very good? At this point, I was just still this bedroom DJ, and only a couple of people had seen me DJ, and I had this competition, which was great. But that was, a practiced set. I couldn't just wing it. And so the main challenge was, just really just fighting against my own inner insecurities. And as soon as I posted it, I got so much positive feedback. I was I was overwhelmed with the amount of people that were like, that's cool. That's cool. How did you do that? That's cool. And there was this slow transition of people saying, why? Because you have, family and that don't really understand, and you have people that are pharmacists that don't understand, and they think, and there is, certain stigmas associated with being a DJ, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of late nights and trying to juggle that with a daytime job. And that shift of the question why turned into how. And I loved that. I loved that slow transition. So there is that challenge in terms of overcoming my inner insecurities of, worried about what people think, and realizing it actually doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And whether they liked it or not, I was proud of myself for posting that mix on SoundCloud. And, it did take me a few months, but every time I posted a new mix on SoundCloud, it took me less and less time. And the more that I got practice, the more confidence that I had. And so for me, it was just this new challenge of being able to, overcome all of those inner insecurities. And then the other aspect and challenges was, okay, so you've told people, but now how are you really going to show the world? And so there was the social media aspect to it. And the social media aspect was, okay, so I'm a professional during the day. I'm a pharmacist. And I think a lot of people come up with these challenges is, they might play netball, they might be in a band, or they might be doing something that's quite tech savvy. And you've got these two personas and these complete different avenues that you both love. But one of them, if you've got Facebook or Instagram, one of them is one persona, and LinkedIn. And then you think, okay, well, if this other skill is completely separate, like, how am I going to deal with that? And so I had to figure out how I was going to show the world and not compromise my professionalism as a pharmacist. So I created a DJ name, Perri Lee. So my full name is Naomi Lee Perri, and I decided to just jumble it up a little bit. And so just created a new Instagram account, a new Facebook account. Perri Lee doesn't have LinkedIn, doesn't matter. we've just kept Naomi for LinkedIn. And so I was able to separate the two. And so I knew that I could post about my DJ stuff, whatever I was working on, my latest SoundCloud mix, the Your Shot competition that I ended up, going on to enter as the wildcard participant. And so I was able to have a platform that was a safe space for me, and it was Perri Lee. It wasn't Naomi. And so they were two completely separate avenues. And so that challenge was ticked off by, making sure that I upheld that professionalism. And then the other challenge that I had was maintaining the healthy lifestyle. And that was when I obviously decided to switch to part-time, and then also realizing the challenges of just starting your own DJ business. And there's so many aspects to that. Having an ABN, invoicing clients, quoting people, sending off emails, doing site inspections, checking out the sound system for a venue, having Zoom meetings or in-person meetings with clients, discussing music, downloading music, making sure that there's a clean edit for, if it's a shopping centre, for example. That was, in my early days where I first started out. And also being able to learn how to properly be a DJ. And it wasn't just the one mix that you had at home. It's branching out into other genres, because I knew that if I was going to start to pursue this, I couldn't just play R&B, reggaeton and Latin house, and that sometimes I would have to adapt and, learn other genres. So, yeah, they were my biggest challenges was, obviously overcoming the inner insecurities and thinking and worrying about what people thought, the social media aspect and having that professionalism of still, wanting to be a professional pharmacist, and then creating the whole separate social media account, and then having a work-life balance of being a part-time pharmacist, part-time DJ, and learning how to create my own DJ business.
Thank you so much. It sounds like it's been an amazing journey thus far. We do have a question that's a little bit more pharmacy based now. So you did speak about at the start about going to the UK for a pharmacy placement. And I think now with COVID, how things have changed, we've finally started to open up a bit more at uni, and the opportunities seem to be a bit more available now to go overseas. So since we know about your placement in the UK, and I know you've already shared a few details about that placement, but do you have any specific details about how you found the placement experience as a whole in the UK and working in the UK in comparison to Australia?
It was one of the best experiences of my life. It was my first overseas trip, which at 21, you would think that that's pretty late to the game. But nevertheless, it was amazing. So I worked in Boots Pharmacy, which is a community pharmacy. And I was staying in Nottingham, which is 2 hours north of London. And I wanted the full experience of living on campus. And obviously I was still in uni. So for me, I was living on campus at Nottingham University. That was something that I did on my own accord because I wanted to integrate with people my age. And I also wanted to learn what English people did. I had not, like, in terms of, are they similar to Australians? I had zero expectations, but I just wanted to find out, what people my age on the opposite side of the planet, what their motivations were and what they were doing with their spare time. And so for me, it was a great social experience in making some lifelong friends, but then also learning about some of the opportunities about what pharmacists do overseas. And they had dependent prescribing rights, independent prescribing rights in the hospital sector. And then in the community aspect, it was amazing to see how pharmacists were really the first port of call. They had their own consultation rooms. I would say that 90% of the public would seek advice from a pharmacist first before seeing their GP, and then they would make that referral. And so I thought that it was quite phenomenal. The pharmacy that I worked at, they had a really great system. The NHS at the time, it was really great how they integrated the scripts and the repeat system, which I thought was all quite unique. And they did have, again, at the time, it was quite new, was all of the electronic prescribing and a lot of the computer technology that obviously is mainstream today. So it opened my eyes up to the potential opportunities for pharmacists and different avenues in terms of career, because at that point I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a community pharmacist, if I wanted to go into hospital, or if I wanted to do something completely different. So that really was an eye-opening experience. So if anybody does have the opportunity to go overseas, I would highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, it definitely would be so interesting to see the differences between the UK practices and the Australian practices. And I love what you said about the patients over there, the people really trusting the pharmacist, coming to them for advice 90% of the time. Like, that is something really amazing and inspiring to hear as a future pharmacist myself. I do have a question in regards to applying for these placements. Was this one done through the uni, or is it one that you kind of outsourced, or how exactly did it work?
Yeah, I mean, you're jogging my memory here. It was over a decade ago, but it was through the uni. So it was something that, and it was different countries. So I know that England was one of them. I feel like America and Canada were the other two. There may have been more. And I really loved England at the time. I still do. I have a real soft spot for the country. I've only been back once. I'm really overdue. But there was the choice. And so you did have to, it was a written application as to why you wanted to do it. And I think it was just part of one of your placements. So it was 3 weeks, and then it was really over your, from memory, summer holidays. So, you know, the downside was that you were sort of cutting into your summer holidays. But I don't know what uni's like these days. I know that people sort of do things in their summer holidays, and that's pretty regular. But back then, us, you know, sort of millennials, we took that summer break and we enjoyed it, every minute of it.
So, out of curiosity, how have you been able to create such harmony between your multiple passions? And then what advice would you give to students who really strive for that work-life balance and to looking into do the same thing as you were doing?
Yeah, it's not easy, that's for sure, because I think you can definitely get caught up in having this one aspect of your life, and it can consume you if you don't have other hobbies and passions and goals, personal goals. And I think as you do go into your work life, you do need to know, you know, when you can set boundaries and when you need to switch off. Because I definitely found in the early parts of my career, I was so involved with my pharmacy work, and I worked so many extra shifts and weekends and late shifts. I went down, you know, obviously working in a hospital, so the shifts were, you know, a little bit different. And I found that I was coming home from work and it was really hard to switch off at the end of the day. And I just didn't know how to navigate through that. And so I would recommend to anybody that even if, you know, you're not wanting to, you know, have a side hustle per se, which a lot of people, you know, are doing, but just making sure that, that you're looking after your health. And it's easier said than done. So I often say that, you know, from an exercise sort of standpoint, is having like a gym buddy or someone else to do it with, because it just makes you, you know, more accountable. And it's the same with pursuing any passion. If you're doing it on your own, it is harder, because you always sort of say to yourself, I'll do it in my spare time. Now, spare time is you know, who comes up with the concept of spare time? You know, you can create as much or a little spare time as you want. And so if you've, you know, as what I did is that I enrolled in a course. So I knew that I had every Tuesday or every Thursday, I had to set aside that time. Paid for that course, I'm going to do it. And so if you're part of a netball team, you don't want to let your teammates down. If everyone's going to training on Tuesday night, you're going to training, and that's it. And so if you are venturing out and making sure that you want to pursue your passions and you want to set aside, you know, time to pursue them, doing that with someone else is definitely something that helps make sure that you actually do it. Because often, and it's the same with, you know, I know for me personally with exercise, you know, consistency and having a routine is so, so, so important. And once you build that into your normal routine, it's kind of like, okay, well, you know, it is part of my week schedule on Mondays and Monday nights. That's what I dedicate my night to. And the more that you set a routine, the more likely you're going to stick to it. And so when I was pursuing DJing and just, you know, having it there for fun, instead of watching TV every night, I was like, okay, this is what I'm setting it out. This is the goal that I'm setting myself out to do. And so you switch your mindset of, you know, doing what you would normally do in your normal day-to-day routine and saying, I'm going to substitute watching that episode for doing something else. And that's how you create the spare time. So creating the passion and having someone else there makes you more accountable. Being consistent and having a routine, they're definitely ways to make sure that you keep that, that balance. And then also, I think also having role models that are doing what you want to do. And it's not, I didn't look up to Calvin Harris and say, that's the person that I want to be, or, Dom Dollar or Fisher. I was saying to myself, no, I actually see this specific person that is doing what I'm doing. I want to meet them. So networking and sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to try and reach out to as many people as possible and learn how they got there. There's no manual on telling you how to create your own DJ business, because I know that when I first started out, getting your first gig was the hardest thing to do, and no one told you how to do it. They were like, okay, give us your business card. I was like, what's a business card? I don't have a business card. What are you supposed to put on a business card? They said, well, give us your press kit. I was like, what is a press kit? And then, you've got to come up with a photo shoot, and you've got to come up with these mixes and a gallery and testimonials. And so, I learned through just doing it. And if only, and that's why I created my DJ network, because I learned other people going through the same thing as me. So if you've got a community around you that support you and also guide you. So I had a couple of female DJs that were absolutely killing it in the game, and I just kept following their journey. And I kept saying, you know what, in 2 years' time, this is going to be me. 2 years' time, that was me. And, I grew and over the years, and now, last night I DJ'd for a wedding of 600 people, and that's a usual sort of wedding for me these days. And I specialize now in weddings and corporate events. I've got my own DJ band. I've got a percussionist, saxophonist, vocalist. I also do emceeing. I've now branched off, and I have a podcast that I co-host with Byron Cook, who's on Mix 101.1. And so I have always just said to myself, it's not about the end goal. It's about the journey. And you're saying yes to as many opportunities as you can is only going to open up more doors. Networking with as many people as you can, and having role models that are doing the things that you want to do.
Definitely. Yeah, I absolutely love your thoughts on how we define spare time, because I totally agree with it. Obviously, we're in control of our own time, and it's always up to us on how we use our time and setting out our time and use it wisely. And so really love that. And also, things can start first as motivation or like passion, but then to turn that into a career, it does require lots of commitments, and then discipline enough to block out that block of time, and then to have that shift in your mindset in a way that, instead of doing these things that I've always been doing in a day-to-day basis, now I'm actually wanted to dedicate that time to do something else that would be more beneficial and will help me grow and do what I love. And I absolutely love that. So thank you, and Naomi, so much for joining our discussion today. I'm pretty sure that our audience have gained a lot of insight into how to turn that passion into a profession and then maintain a work-life balance between both of the worlds, and to build connections and to have that sense of community and to keep growing and become a better version of ourselves. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I love being a pharmacist, and I've loved every single journey. And even though the skills that I've learned in pharmacy and DJ are separate, they've both complemented each other and have helped me in both aspects of my life. And I'm extremely grateful to be able to do both. So hopefully I have inspired at least one of you that is listening today to, enjoy the pharmacy degree that you have. You never know where it's going to take you, who you're going to meet along in the journey, and where you're going to end up. So thank you so much.
Dose of Pharma acknowledges the traditional custodians of the various lands throughout Australia on which we connect today, and pays respect to elders past, present, and future.